Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a conversation I had on my podcast with Timi, aka Mr. MoneyJar. And if you haven't started listening to the Frugal Spender Podcast, firstly I'd ask why not, but secondly head over to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, anywhere you can get a podcast, you'll be able to download it. And I am dedicating a lot of my time to putting together comprehensive episodes about certain subjects, but also to sit down and talk to as many educated people in the space of personal finance and anything that I find interesting to put together for you so that you can learn something every episode. Now, I had the pleasure of being on the Mr. MoneyJar podcast back in April, and we had such an interesting discussion about an array of topics, not just personal finance related, and I thought it would be good to have him back onto my podcast to have a further discussion. And it didn't disappoint. I really enjoyed the topics we talked about, and I think you will too. And if you're unaware of who the Mr. MoneyJar is, it is Timi Merriman-Johnson. He is an award-winning financial content creator. He's also a podcaster, an author, and the founder of the Mr. MoneyJar podcast, Instagram, TikTok, basically any social platform. I hope you enjoy our conversation, but before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and also go over to wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe there too. Let's drop the intro and get into it. Timi from Mr. MoneyJar, how are you?
Very good, Brian. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the last time we spoke on my podcast, so I've really been looking forward to speaking to you today.
Yeah, me too. I listened to it last night and this morning again, just to kind of refresh myself about what we spoke about. And we really did go on some tangents about my previous jobs and probably all the things that you aren't supposed to talk about. But I guess, we do that already anyway, talking about finance, but politics and race and all these things that are meant to be taboo subjects. And I think we should talk about these things. I think we spoke in, I think it was April. Since then, sort of on Instagram and stuff, your face pops up all the time. And I see that you're doing a lot of stuff for like on the news, Sky News, that sort of stuff. So it's good to see the content that you're creating, getting out there in the more mainstream stuff, probably at a time like this where it's needed the most, i.e. the cost of living crisis. Do you feel like your message is spreading further as a result of the current situation that we're in?
Yeah, the decision. Firstly, thank you. And on the TikTok side, I'm trying to be like you. My TikTok is, I think, fledgling would be the polite way to put it. But hoping to continue building it.
No, it looks good.
But just across the board, I made the conscious decision to talk about the cost of living crisis because unlike the pandemic, which I think is kind of history now, right? Because we're in November and there's no talk of Delta Cron or whatever the latest.
No, and you know what, the fear of it seems to have disappeared, isn't it? Like, even if I hear about a new strain or new variant, I'm like, nah,
yeah, fine. I've had my 4 jabs. The cost of living crisis, by comparison, I do not believe is just going to disappear, because there are short-term issues that have resulted in this kind of high inflation environment that we're in. So all of the money that we had to put into the system during COVID, the supply chain issues that all the pandemics and the lockdowns caused, the war in Ukraine, and the squeeze that put on kind of energy prices. But if you look at all of the metrics that matter as well, so the strength of the pound, wage growth, GDP growth, the FTSE 100, a lot of that has been sliding since Brexit. So since 2016, when the pound took that initial massive plunge. But then if you go even further back, since the 2008 financial crisis, we are in a way still recovering from that. And if you just look at it on a like-for-like basis, if it takes a number of years to get into a situation, then it's going to take a number of years to get out of that situation, I think.
Yeah, and I think all those things you mentioned there, it's just layer upon layer upon layer, isn't it? And it's almost kind of finished on the peak of the pandemic, where something that's never happened before, everything gets shut down, people's wages need to be subsidized, and that money obviously comes from us eventually. It seems like the government are doing a great thing which I guess they were cornered. They didn't have a choice. We had to pay people because they couldn't physically work. People need to eat. And at the time, because it was so scary, everyone's just thinking, we'll deal with that in the future, because the future seems so far away, because everyone's time horizon was like, right, how do we get through these lockdowns? How do we get through the next 2 months? And now that it is, or certainly feels like it is in the past, we're now just stuck in the situation where I feel privileged that I learned about this kind of stuff just before the first lockdown. I had this discussion with Georgie, my partner, the other day, and I was thinking, I don't honestly know the situation I'd be in right now if I didn't know what I now know, sort of money-wise, money management-wise, getting out of debt, that sort of stuff. What situation would I be in a sort of sliding doors moment in a different parallel universe if I just continued to be rubbish with money, lived on a average wage, and drove a lot to get to work, had to try and keep up with the food bills. Like, we're all feeling it, and I feel like it, even though I feel like I'm on top of this stuff.
Yeah. And actually, for anyone who's listening to this or watching this who feels that they are rubbish with money, it's not your fault. If when you got to university, you were just handed the keys to a car and just told, yeah, drive, there would be a really high percentage of accidents and that sort of thing, because we have a system where you have to learn how to drive and pass a test, and for the many different reasons, we aren't taught about finances in the same way, and that results in, like, for me, like going to uni and just being in my overdraft the entire time. So you're not to blame for that situation. And as me and Brian have found, it is a skill that you can learn, money management. But absolutely, just having control of your finances in the good times means that when the hard times come along, you at least have systems and processes that you're operating off, having an emergency fund saved, having your debt under control, having different accounts for different things, and that sort of thing. And I'm feeling it too. I'm definitely feeling it too. The other day, I was in the supermarket and I went to the cereal aisle, and I just stood there, just looking at how expensive all the cereal was. Just were really confused.
I had a similar moment the other day. Actually, I now do the weekly shops because Georgie hates it. So I just think I'm much more efficient. I go in with a plan. I don't get distracted by things. So I just go in with a list and get it done. And my daughter really likes soft cheese.
Okay.
And I, for some reason, just remembered how much it used to cost. It was 47p. And this was like the cheapest site. It wasn't Philadelphia. It was the budget soft cheese from Tesco.
Yeah.
It was 47p for as long as I can remember doing the shop. And it's now gone up to 87p. And that seems like such a trip. It's hardly anything. It's 40p. But if you look at the inflation rate on that, it's insane.
Yeah, it's like a doubling.
It's it's doubled in cost. And yes, that hasn't happened with everything, but everything's gone up. And it kind of brought me to the idea of, and I've been thinking about it quite a lot, is the inflation rate that we all told about, obviously selected from a basket of goods that, the average person uses, but we don't all use those.
No.
So we all have an individual inflation rate. So the people who, just buy soft cheese are now having to find almost double the amount of income that they had before to afford it. And obviously that's an extreme example, but whatever it is that you spend your money on, the different inflation rates could potentially be higher or potentially be lower if you're lucky. But I mean, things like fuel and energy, those things we don't really have a choice in. But the things we do have a choice in, we've got to be really conscious of actually looking at and thinking, God, I think what's gone up so much. And if you're not budgeting, which is obviously the holy grail of skills you need to learn, and living below your means, spend less than you earn. If that isn't a habit you're in, it's easy to just kind of spiral out and get yourself into debt here, on top of the fear and anxiety of knowing everything's going up, and just kind of getting into a corner and thinking, I don't know what to do. Because increasing your income, I know I used to feel like it's impossible. Whatever I was earning at the time is what I earn. Like, people who earn more than me have some sort of extra ability. They have some knowledge that I don't have access to.
Yeah, more valuable than you as a person.
Absolutely.
I used to tie the amount of money I made to my sense of worth as well, which I'd love to get into that with you in
Yeah,
this
well,
conversation.
let's get into it here, because I think that all ties into it.
Yeah.
I think it all relates to it. And I think money anxiety, which is obviously exacerbated by what's going on at the moment. But if you already feel like, I'm just average or below average person, and that's just what I'm going to earn, because whatever you earn now, you always, when you project out into the future, you always think that's the sort of salary you're going to be on, unless you're on this career projection where you sort of know you're going to get an increase of wage over time and you almost guaranteed promotions, which is, the majority don't have that. The
Yeah.
majority live on a wage and they're lucky to get a 2% increase in their pay, which obviously is nothing, it doesn't even touch inflation slightly. Those people that was me. And it sounds like potentially that was you too in the past. Yeah. And I think financial education, for me, unlocks the sort of thought, something in my mind just kind of, oh, actually, whatever I do, whatever value I create for myself, for other people, that is actually what's tied to the income I can make. It's nothing to do with what my employer tells me that I'm worth.
Yeah. I think that there are lots of things that come into this. Firstly, I quote this guy all the time. The guy who gave a TED talk on creativity, and it's one of the most viewed. Like if you go to TED's website, and he describes school as a protracted university entry experience, or maybe he describes school and uni as a protracted entry experience into the workplace.
Ken Robinson?
Does he kind of older chap wearing glasses?
Yeah, Sir
and
Ken
it's about
Robinson.
creativity. Yeah, it's a fantastic TED talk. Like there's a good reason why it's so popular. And in a way, it is kind of like you go to school, you pass your exam, you go to the next year, then you go to uni, it's like all set and stuff. So by the time you get to your work, you're like, well, this is just like school. If I just do the job that I've been given, then at the end of the year, I'll get a promotion. Mm-hmm. And it's actually like, you can do things that way, but you can also, as you said, Brian, create value. And what I say to people when it comes to increasing your income is, you can definitely make money. And the reason why is because we all spend money on dumb stuff, or on stuff that we use once and never ever use it again. Just think of all the useless things that you bought in your life. You're happy to part with that cash at that moment in time. Talk less of the things that you actually really value. So if you just created that same product or service and you could distribute it to people, people would be happy to pay you. And I think capitalism has a lot to answer for as well. So it's like there's a schooling system, but there's also capitalism. I actually think capitalism it's like a religion. I think it's a prevailing religion in the West, which a byproduct of that is that it makes the individual just feel like a cog in a massive machine, because there are producers and consumers, and the people who make the stuff have no interest whatsoever in the people making their money, their staff being educated about how to make more money as well. So you're kind of trapped in this system.
Yeah, this system is almost set up so that you don't the person at the bottom isn't supposed to feel like they can get to the top.
No,
even though that is what capitalism is kind of promoted to be. Work hard and you can get to the top. But actually, that's not in the best interest of potentially the people at the top.
It's not, and I don't think that there's necessarily a suppression. They're not going to come and like tell you how to make it. If you make it, I think you'll get a high five, but they're not going to tell you how to do that. But like you absolutely, and so you feel like you're a small cog in this massive machine. And what I think this leads to is a doubting of your abilities that you have. So many people don't realize that, like, if you can code, if you know how to, if you're good at yoga, if you know maths, you could just jump on Zoom and charge someone an hourly rate to teach them that stuff. That is very specific, like value adding stuff that you can teach to someone else. Or if you have an opinion and a perspective and a smartphone like us do, you can just make content, post it online, learn what people want to see, optimize it, and then like brands will want to partner with you because they don't have the time to do all of that. They're too busy. So I really think like everyone has value. No matter what this capitalist system wants to say to us, everyone is good at something. And the internet has created an environment now where you can find your 1,000 true fans. There will be an audience for you. Doesn't, you know, if you go on YouTube, there's like just the most random like channels that are like super successful. Just what did I see the other day? It's like someone who like cooks, but you can only see their hands and then they're voiceovering it. It's just like really random, but they've got like thousands of subscribers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's almost like that whole I can't remember the name, but there's a lot of research into your income is the average of your 5 closest people. And that kind of ties in quite well with that, because if you see people around you going self-employed and sort of getting off the wheel, as it were, and chasing some sort of passion, whether it's creating stuff online, creating content, working with brands, which is kind of the main sort of default online content creator, go viral, then brands want to pay you money to just make more videos that hopefully go viral. But that seems like it's almost like film stars. It's like you watch a film, and then if you were to see that person walking in the street, like, oh my God, but they just somebody who that's just their job. It's almost seems alien. So unless your circle of friends is content creators or people who have done it or actors, it's almost unachievable. Even though anybody with a phone like this that costs you, I don't know, people on a contract £20-30 a month or whatever, you can just, the cameras are so good and the audio is good enough.
Yeah,
I mean, if you go back and watch my first YouTube videos, like, it's tinny audio, and granted, I didn't have many people listening, but that's what gets the ball rolling. And then you start getting a bit of a passion for it, and you start realizing, I actually quite enjoy writing stuff and creating content. And all it takes is that one person to reach out to you and go, the stuff you're doing, actually, I really enjoy, or I'm getting value from it, or thank you very much. And then that's it. The snowball starts going. But unless you have people around you that you've seen as possible and can even give you some pointers, to the average person, unless they're told, just create something. Doesn't matter what it is, just something. Everyone has some sort of passion or interest that they can give value to other people.
And you just said so many words there that I love, like passion. Just do what you love. Actually, no, let me start from like the first thing that you said that I loved, which was budgeting. So in order for you to find the time and have the freedom to pursue something like this, you need to because what I did, like when I first went to start my business, was I actually took time off work. I took 2 weeks off work and I sketched out Mr. MoneyJar. This was like a few weeks ago. So I think you need to have time freedom and a degree of financial stability to even have like the mind space to think about what you might want to do. Because when I first started working, I was in debt. I was in like my overdraft, and I was doing the paycheck to paycheck game, and work just consumed my life. I don't know if that you ever went through a phase like that where
I did.
You just like wake up, go to work, get home, you're knackered, you sleep, wake up, go to work. So you're not going to have the bandwidth to be able to think about things if that's what you're in. So I think just knowing your finances, saving up a bit of money, so you can just have the mental freedom of like, I don't need my job. This is just something that I'm doing. But then also focusing on what you love, I don't think work needs to be a bad word. I think work is the mechanism through which you make the world a better place and solve problems. So if you just focus on problems that are important to you, and those problems are also shared by other people, they'll probably want to pay you to help them out with that stuff. People, particularly in this day and age, will massively pay for you to save them time. This is why like professional dog walkers can do that stuff full time, because they're saving people a lot of time. We're very time poor now. What we do, we're saving people time. All the information that we share is on the internet, but what we've done is we've consolidated it and simplified it down so that people don't need to go to all the different sources and all the different places that we've read and watched. They can just come to us. So yeah, you were talking about passion, like doing what you love, budgeting, and then there was something else that you said that I really liked. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, yeah. And the point that you made there, I find quite interesting, actually, because people do talk about sort of being time poor. And I think there's also, like you just said, there's a good argument to be made that people are just sort of mind space poor, because you're consumed by, even though one of the platforms that I use is TikTok, that is designed to be a lot of information very quickly for as long as possible. So like you're not supposed to think when you're on. Like just let TikTok do the thinking for you. And in fact, as soon as you do unconsciously watch something longer than you realize you did, we're going to continue to give you that, which is going to keep you on the platform longer. And obviously that's the algorithm that all sort of social medias want. But all that does is minimize your own sort of thinking time and idea brainstorming time, because people get ideas when they're not doing anything. You don't get ideas scrolling through TikTok. You might get an idea because you've heard something you like, and then maybe that sort of springs an idea, which is obviously the goal of hopefully what we do. But just going for a walk outside and not having headphones in and just having nothing happening, that's when you come up with ideas. That's when it comes to work, I totally agree. And that's how I always felt, always, up until a couple of years ago, regardless of what job I did. Even when I was in the police, having 4 days off in a row should, in hindsight, be, that's quite, actually I had 6 days on, 4 days off. That's 40% of my time. One of those days was sleeping off a night shift, but technically I should have had 40%. That's almost half of my time doing nothing. But you fill that time with other stuff. Like you're stressing about work, you're worrying about paying the bills. You're not. So I really like what you said there, actually having that security of knowing I don't need my job. And like, if I have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months, that relieves more stress. I mean, for me, that was a game changer, but that relieves more stress than anything, because you go, it's okay. Like I'm not at the
you're not
peril,
beholden to anyone.
I'm not at the peril to my boss. If I get called into my boss's office and I'm going, oh my God, have I done something wrong? If I'm going to get fired, I'm going to lose my mortgage. But if you've got 3 to 6 months worth of expenses sitting in a bank account, those worries are going to be severely diminished. And it seems, that comes from a place where I currently have it, but that would have seemed unachievable before. Like, there's no way I can save this sort of money. And I did, I mean, I don't know about you, but I did it on we talked about this when we were on your podcast, but I did it on a very low income. Like, as far as a family sort of income goes, it was below average. And having that intensity and the will and the drive, and then also the mental space at the same time, was all kind of like a perfect storm for me to get it done. And my goal as a content creator in this space is to try and give people that hope, that so they can feel that it's possible. Because I hate it when people say they can't do it. I hate it.
That was the other thing that you said. You spoke of budgeting, passion, and possibility, and that was the third thing. I actually believe that anything is possible. I think if you can imagine it, then it's possible. And that there are very crazy things that are possible, more so than being able to being able to increase your income. When you actually just sit down and think about the fact that, like, I'm going a bit abstract here, but that there is electricity, that we can just like talk to each other like over the internet now. That would have seemed very crazy to people at a point in time. The fact that we've landed on the moon, the fact that
it's magic until it happens.
Yeah. And someone was really frustrated. They're like, I want to be able to talk to people when they're not there. And then they went to work on that problem, and they iterated on that problem. So I really do believe in the power of possibility as well. And as you said, you learn that things are possible by being exposed to them, by seeing other people do them, which is why who you hang out with is really important.
Yeah. And going back to the social media point, it's also who you follow and what you follow. And in a world where Andrew Tate is like the biggest star on the internet. And hey, who am I to say whether he's good or bad for society? But if you are consuming a lot of what he talks about, or fill in the blank with anybody else on on the internet, if that's what you consume, that's how you're going to start talking. That's how you're going to start acting. That's the sort of way you're going to start dressing. So you've got to be really sort of careful and curate kind of what you listen to. And for me, personal finance wise, I just went kind of all in. And like, I think we spoke about this last time as well, but I just like all day, every day I was listening to podcasts about finance. All day, every day I was reading when I could, watching YouTube videos. And that's when it became normal to me. Like if it was passing video and I just watched it, it would have just been gibberish, like pensions, ISAs. These are all
Mhm.
things that people know are related to money, but don't understand at all how it applies to them personally. So I always say to people, like, if you're anything like me, my personality is get very obsessed with something. So like, if that is you, then there's few better things to get obsessed about to sort your entire life out than your personal finances.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Now that I feel that I've got a hold of the personal finance side, I'm now starting to focus on something that I've massively neglected all my life, and that's my health.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see you've been doing marathons and lots of running and
yeah.
on your stories, which is good to see.
Because I think another thing that capitalism kind of tricks us into thinking is that as long as you're making as much money as possible, then you're like doing great. So your back could be hurting, you could be in really bad shape, you could be depressed or whatever, but you've got loads of money, you're really wealthy and stuff. And then I realized that actually, if if my mental health is not right, if my physical health is not right, then that is going to affect my ability to make money. But
Yeah.
you need to have, you know, paying for something like a PT and something that's expensive. So there is a degree of finances that you need to have. But I've been focusing on that a lot too, and I've been seeing a huge return on investment
Good.
by just focusing on my health this year.
Good. I mean, the correlation between health and money and wealth and stuff like that, you can draw so many different analogies and correlations between those two things.
Yeah.
You reminded me, I watched Wolf of Wall Street the other day.
Oh, what a film!
Great film. We went
Yeah.
to we went to Scotland last week, and on the plane journey there and back, what you just said reminded me of it. It's that kind of chase of becoming rich at the cost of so much else. Like,
Mhm.
you can look great, you can have nice cars, and you can have yachts and chuck money around. But everything else around you will crumble if that's your obsession, especially if you do it in a manner that is illegal. But
Mhm.
um, I think it's just a good way to think about it. I think when I talk about intensity and focus and being passionate about something early on, that's how you learn about something and get good at it quickly. And
Mhm.
then, like you said, you don't need to, like, you and I now don't need to spend hours a month budgeting or
Mhm.
investing, because we put the time in before. You've learned what investing is, and you've got your base knowledge, and you don't really need to keep up to date with everything that's happening in the investing world, because you
Mhm.
have a fundamental understanding. And then you can move on to fitness, health, or whatever it is that you want to do that to. And
Mhm.
that's life, isn't it? Finding passions and then moving on. But as long as you retain the good information that you need to continue doing it, you can then try and find balance going forward. So
Yeah.
like, you can spend 20 minutes budgeting a month, but everything else should be automated anyway. And then you can go to the gym 2,
Yeah.
3, 4 days a week, because that's part of your routine. And you've got that balance of, I'm not just worried about making money, I'm also worried about my health, because what's the point in having money if, I'm not going to be healthy to enjoy it?
Like we started off talking about the cost of living crisis, and something I was going to say when we were talking about it was, um, it does seem like a potentially like quite bad feedback cycle the situation the economy is in, because inflation is really high and the Bank of England is raising interest rates to make borrowing more expensive, to reduce spending power, to bring down prices. But at the same time, they are trying to grow the economy as well. And if people aren't spending money with businesses, then those businesses will suffer. And then the economy suffers. So I just wanted to like get your thoughts and like talk a bit about how do we dig ourselves out of this like almost like two-headed dragon.
Well, that is the multi-million pound and dollar question, isn't it?
Well, as pounds and dollars are the same now, so
Yeah, it's true, and it's all going to be it's all going to be digital
yeah.
very soon. Um, Yeah, I think it's such a complex question, and you can look at it from so many different. I mean, Liz Truss didn't last very long from her perspective, and
Mhm.
she obviously wanted that sort of aggressive growth, and didn't want to tax people anymore. And what is the answer? I mean, it's a bit like the stock market, isn't it? Because it's all speculative. The stock market and the economy crashed based on things she said.
Mhm.
She hadn't done anything.
Mm.
She said, "This is what I think we should do," and everything fell apart, which just shows you how fragile it is, um, to be a politician and to be in charge of so many people's futures and money, like at a drop of a hat, just by saying, we're gonna get rid of this sort of tax over there, and we're gonna just try and grow the economy by getting people to spend more money, and just by saying those words, or like Elon Musk saying something about Bitcoin and it shooting up, just by saying the words, that for me is kind of like, it scares me, because I've always thought before, especially before I started learning about money, that these people in charge knew what they were doing. And it's a very strong, they must know, because all these people in suits are very wealthy, and they must know how to run a country and an economy. But you kind of learn it's all just a big game, and it's a balancing act.
And they're supposed to be the best as well. They're supposed to have gone to the best schools, the best universities,
and surrounded by the best economists,
and they're supposed to have risen to the top. But
so for me, so the question of how to fix it, I really don't have an answer to that. For me, it is, we can spend all of our time, and I know a lot of people do, and it's easy to go down the rabbit hole of like listening to LBC. I went through a stage a few months ago of listening to it a lot, because it's all anger, the government this, the government that. But we're not changing anything by doing that.
You just focus on solutions.
And the only thing you can solve is your situation and your family situation and your friend's situation. Those are the people you can influence. You can't, other than voting, which yes, everyone I think should do, but you can't influence a politician's ideas, which was proven by Liz Truss. Like, no, regardless of whether you hated her or what she said, nothing you thought or did at that moment in time would have changed anything. So focus on you. And yes, there's going to be external kind of things happening from the government and taxes, things that you can't control, but you got to go forward with all of the, like, it's just like a multitude of games of how do I navigate? How do I get to the best position I can be in, whether it's wealth, health, whatever it is? How do I get to what I want to be by navigating all of this and focusing on what I can change and being the best person I can, rather than just trying to influence other people, because you can't.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's kind of, we're a very self-deprecating culture as well, though. Like we sort of like to have a grumble, but like not do anything. We'll not do anything about it.
Yeah, bad weather. We like to talk about.
But I think I thought that Rishi Sunak's policies made sense. I thought his policies made sense in terms, because Liz Truss wanted to cut taxes, and he from the very beginning was like, but if you cut taxes, the Bank of England is going to raise interest rates and people's mortgages are going to go through the roof. He said that because I watched the leadership debates.
It aged very well.
Yeah. And his policy was around the windfall tax, which he eventually came round to, and using that money to offer targeted payments to people to help them get through winter. I thought that's like quite a good anti-inflationary measure, because you're not raising people's wages, you're just giving them the money that they need, and protecting the most vulnerable in society. So that's what I would have done on the consumer side. By the way, I'm just embracing the spirit that like the politicians are no different from us, so I'm just going to throw my suggestions into the hat anyway.
No, do it.
And then on the business side,
Timi for Prime Minister. I'll vote for you, mate.
Yeah, that's one vote I've got. But then on the business side, businesses do need help with their expenses to be able to continue operating. And so I would want to see relief on things like rents and utilities, so that businesses aren't shuttering and going under. A restaurant that I really like called Chuku's in North London. It's a Nigerian tapas restaurant. It's awesome. I've been there a few times now. They actually had to do a social media campaign to ask people to book, I can't remember how many orders it was, but they needed a certain amount of orders before the end of the year, or they would have had to close. And thankfully they succeeded. Like, people booked in their droves. Good. But like, that's the kind of situation that businesses are under. And it's not because their products aren't good, it's because their bills are too high.
Yeah.
So I would want to see like support for businesses. And I do think that the money should come from, but at least in part, because Liz Truss didn't want to do windfall tax at all. But I think that the money should have come from, at least in part, the super rich oil and gas companies who are saying, tax us.
Yeah.
We have more money than we know what to do with. Please tax us.
And that's where they're conspiracy minded. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but why are they not being taxed?
I think it's an ideological point. So it's like the businesses have made their money, so they should use that money to pay their staff and invest in different types. I think there's almost this sense that like the oil and gas producers of today will be the wind and the nuclear producers of tomorrow. So they should be using this money to develop, future
Sustainable
facing,
potentially. Yeah.
That's if they do that, if they don't take the money and just pay themselves bonuses and stuff. But I think it's
big corporations wouldn't do that.
But I think it's an ideological point of, no, you don't take money away from businesses. That's wrong. Like you leave the market to do what it does. But the thing is, when people can't like buy groceries and afford to heat their homes, that's like that's a very serious situation.
That's my struggle. That's where I struggle, because all the solutions are at the surface level. It's all like, let's take a bit of money from this rich person and give it to this person who's less fortunate. Whereas there's a very simple solution. Let's tax those companies or force them into a corner whereby fuel, at the pump is cheaper. Not it's expensive and we all just accept it, because that is what happens. We just accept that, your local supermarket has put their prices up significantly. Fuel significantly more expensive, energy bills, all these things that's not even almost a negotiable. You just go, it's happening. Like watching Martin Lewis on, he's got a TikTok now actually, watching his previous videos about him just kind of like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to do. This is happening. The next April, your bills are going up. Why are we accepting that? That's just, instead we're not going, they don't need to. There is a way that this doesn't happen, by making sure that the people who are charging you this money, like you said, rightfully, have made more profit than ever before.
And the thing is, they've made profit not through doing anything different. They've just made more profit because the stuff costs more.
No more added value.
Yeah.
No more product. We're just going to charge you double and more for the same product. Wages, I'm assuming, haven't doubled.
No.
Their running costs may have gone up, but that's all because of the fuel's gone up across the world anyway, because everyone's just, I find it, and for me, that's what frustrates me. And that's why I don't want to take a very pessimistic approach to it, but I think that's why it's best to focus on you, because I will drive myself insane by thinking policy just needs to be giving people a bit of extra money to help, which obviously, if that's all we can do, then that needs to be done, because people should not go hungry. People should not be cold. That's like worst case scenario, of course, and we should do whatever we can to prevent that from happening. I just wish that, especially mainstream media, the focus needs to be, how much money has BP made? Like this year, last year, since the pandemic. That's what we need to be focusing on. Not, okay, well, how am I going to, scrimp together and find a few pounds to get to work because fuel's so expensive.
And then, so that's like those would be the short-term solutions, kind of just the tax and the redistribution. But then I think longer term, I'm not saying this to be a downer. I'm definitely not. But I do feel that for our generation, I think we're a similar age to each other.
I'm 33.
Yeah, I turned 33 yesterday.
There we go. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I worked. Adult birthdays.
That's what happens when you get to your 30s.
Yeah. But so those are the short-term solutions, but then there's a longer-term issue of like growing the economy. And I think that unfortunately for our generation, this is the hand we have been dealt. Like we came to the workforce on the tail, like at the start of the financial crash. Then we had Brexit. Then we had the pandemic. Now we have high inflation, cost of living crisis. everyone is pointing towards a recession next year, lasting, up to like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's not that like it's over for our generation, but that is the hand that we've been dealt. So we now need to, I think, like just invest in the future now.
Yeah.
A lot of the products, and like the US is the wealthiest country in the world, I guess, because and the reason why we use the S&P 500 as synonymous with the stock market is that it's a global index. We use iPhones, we use like Meta's products, Google's products, Netflix, Amazon.
Yeah, it's all global.
Even like when I grew up, I used to think that Kellogg's was a British company. It's like an American company. And so every time you interact with these things, America is getting a piece of that profit. In Jack Bogle's book, The Little Competence Guide to Investing, he says that 51% of all the profits that flow into the S&P 500 are global profits. And I want to see the UK be like that. I think that we could make stuff here and we could sell to the rest of the world. I think it was really cool, for example, when we were the first people to give people vaccines during the COVID pandemic. Like AstraZeneca is a British firm. I think there's a lot that we could do around energy, around space travel. Like why is it we literally have the Greenwich Observatory in this country? Time begins here. So why is it
all time revolves around England?
It starts in England. So why is it only NASA putting the James Webb Telescope into space and sending us pictures of like what deep space looks like? We could totally do that. We have the brain power here. So I think we need to be like, what do we want to be known for, and what do we want people to come to the UK for, rather than in some regards kind of being an outpost for the US and just kind of copying a lot of what they do.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the only way to do it is to allow businesses and ideas to thrive.
Yeah, and support them, support anyone who's got an idea, but in particular, support young people, so that their future can be better than what ours was, and just give them that space and that time to thrive.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So we've both taken quite a pessimistic approach there, certainly our generation. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel that you think people can do? So people sort of our generation, millennials, and what, like, if you're feeling like hopeless, and I know many people are, is there anything that any tips that you would give somebody so that they can do?
I hope I haven't come across as pessimistic. I do try and defer to realism.
I definitely have.
I do try and defer to realism at all times. I think like reality is going to win at the end of the day. So we are where we are. What I would say to people is that, firstly, that if you spend time, like when you said that you spent all that time on LBC and stuff, that for me was like the BBC top 10, like particularly during the Prime Minister debates and stuff. It was just me on the BBC app every day, just refreshing to see what's happening. So the news is going to tell you about how terrible things is now. But what the mainstream media is not going to say is that since the start of the 20th century, at least, we've had one recession on average, at least every 10 years. So actually economic downturns are cyclical. They occur with startling frequency. And you want to think of it like an economic winter. Do we want it to be snowy and rainy and dark outside? No, but that happens once a year. And so what you do is you prepare for it. You can go outside and be like, why is it not sunny? But the thing is not. And it does that every single year. So you prepare for it. 1. 2, it's actually in difficult times like this, which is where multi-millionaires are made, world-changing ideas come out of recessions and difficult times. There is a reason why Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are 2 of the most successful investors of all time. They're both brilliant people, but they also got started in their investing careers at the tail end of the Great Depression in the United States. And if you read, yeah, like they were just buying great companies on the cheap. And anyone who invested during the coronavirus crash in 2020 would have seen just ridiculous results just from buying at the right time. So this environment that we're in, hopefully, will stimulate some of that innovation and some of those ideas to get us out of this. And then the final thing I'll say is just to echo what you said, which is you might feel when you're like reading the news and you're speaking to people that you have an influence over things like government policy. You really don't. But there are loads of things that you can take control of and focus on in your own life that you can control. You can sit down with like and make a budget. I use Money Dashboard Neon app to do my budgeting. I look at it every week. You can make a spending plan for yourself. You can look at your debts and consolidate them or make a plan to pay them off. You can like try something. Like we can both speak to content creation. If you have an idea, if you have a passion, record yourself, upload it, see what happens. And you can change the lives of people around you. You can help people in your immediate vicinity, your family, your friends, people you work with, your neighbors. And even if you help just one person, that's good enough. If everyone helped one person, but it was millions of people doing that, then millions of people would be helped.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think you're right. You do, and you don't come across as pessimistic. You do come across as realist, and I like the knowledge that you have and the tips that you give because I think it's applicable to everybody. And I think one of the things that I've seen that you're helping people with is that you're the national numeracy ambassador.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and how does that tie into kind of the content you create?
Yeah. So I've been with them since was it last May? I think it's been a year and a half, and that came about just from a conversation with someone on the team, and our values aligned. And the charity is all about helping UK adults and children feel confident about numbers, because with maths, but also we see this with money, someone will have a really bad experience in the classroom and then just shut the door on maths for the rest of their life and just be like, yep, not good at that. And people do that with money as well. They'll have a bad experience and be like, yep, I'm not good with money. I'm not going to engage with it. I'm not going to focus on it. So it's about empowering people to use maths as the tool that it is to improve their lives. And then I talk about how that relates to money with them. And there are two main kind of touch points for the charity operates year round, but there are two main touch points: Number Confidence Week, which is this week, and then National Numeracy Day, which is in May. And yeah, it's a really cool partnership.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I was always all right at maths. I think not at I didn't do it at university, or to be honest, I didn't even do it at A level, but I always enjoyed it. And I think the point that you make about having a bad experience, I think is true. And I think because so many people do, I think my brother's very good at maths, but the rest of my family hate it with a passion. And I always think, what's the reason for that? We've got my brother's very good at maths and I quite like it. What is it that, because my mum didn't teach us maths, my dad doesn't teach us maths. What is it what experience have they had? Maybe it was a maths teacher that was just not very good at teaching, or, was just not a great teacher. And for that reason alone, for the rest of their life, just won't entertain the idea of trying to learn it. And I think the correlation between that and personal finance is huge, because people just think personal finance is numbers, even though I would argue it's not. It is 99% psychological. But obviously, because you're thinking about money and numbers and bank accounts and ISAs and all that sort of stuff, your brain kind of goes to the math side straight away. And if you're not that way inclined, you're just you're not likely to engage with it. So I'm glad that you're kind of being a poster boy for that in the sort of personal finance space. I think that's great.
Thank you. And we've covered themes, that apply to this as well, which is generally speaking, there are two kind of mindsets that people have. There's a book by Angela Duckworth called Grit. She also gave a TED talk. It's really good. And you can either have a growth mindset when it comes to something or a fixed mindset when it comes to something. A fixed mindset goes, I'm crap at this thing. I will never be good at this thing. I'm not going to bother with this thing. A growth mindset goes, I'm not good now, but if I just carry on practicing and carry on doing this thing, I will get better because actually I can learn anything given enough time and enough effort. Funnily enough, all human beings are this way. When you're born, you're not able to walk and you don't just start walking overnight. You crawl, you walk, you stumble, you fall over. And because you're a kid, you're not aware of how much you suck at walking. It's just a new discovery kind of, I don't have any children, but like perhaps you saw this with your daughter, like it's a really joyful experience. And then somewhere along the line, down the line, life kicks your ass and tells you, yeah, you're rubbish at stuff and being rubbish at stuff is bad. I love being rubbish at stuff. I'm doing comedy classes at the moment. I'm not good at comedy, but I know that if I keep doing it, that I will improve. And I think just with anything, whether it's maths, numbers, maths, money, like whatever it is that you're learning, just believe that if you stick with the thing, then you will get good at it. You may not become world class at it, but you can get to a good level at most things.
Yeah, I mean, I have the exact same mindset. I think I purposely try and put myself into weird, bad, uncomfortable situations now.
You've got to.
And that isn't something that's natural. You have to force yourself to do it. And I think it takes for you to do something out of your comfort zone, whether it's kind of like public speaking or whatever it is, because there's always that anxiety leading up to it. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. But then you do it and then you feel amazing and you go, oh, I did it. It's actually not as hard as I thought it was. And then you kind of realize, oh, I can improve here. And then the next time you do it, you get better. And then, like you said, you just, over time, you keep practicing and you get really good at something. I mean, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's the best analogy ever because nobody knows how to fight. Nobody, especially with Jiu-Jitsu, I don't know if you know much about it, but essentially it's like in the UFC when people end up on the floor, it's like it's not punching and kicking and that sort of stuff. It's basically grappling and wrestling. Nobody knows how to do that. Nobody instinctively knows how to do that. Some people can like wrestle and kind of can beat somebody else, but nobody instinctively knows what to do, where to put your hand, what to do. It takes years. It actually takes years. And it is the best analogy for life because it doesn't matter who you are. When you start, you're useless. And you can translate that to probably anything skill related. But for me, somebody trying to choke you is a great analogy for life. Like that is a cost of living crisis. That is a pandemic. And if you learn actually the first few times, okay, I don't know what to do. And then you learn to defend yourself. And then you learn how to do it to somebody else. That if you apply those principles to life, and whether it's, I don't know, archery, comedy, whatever it is, once you do it once, you realize you can do it. It's like exponential. You can do it for anything. So you purposely find something. That's the situation I'm in now. Is, especially like creating content, doing podcasts, putting your face on TikTok and YouTube, all these things that like you think, oh God, what my friends are going to think. Who cares what my friends are going to think? Like, I really don't care.
Yeah. And your content is awesome. Like I don't know what camera you're using or what lighting you're using for your TikToks, but like yours is definitely one that I watch. Like if I can just get to that level of video, then I'll be very happy indeed.
Oh, that's very kind of you. For me, that was just kind of, lighting is definitely the big one. If you look at like a three light setup, use that for everything. Just like a light in front of you, light to the side, light behind. That'll make your videos look a million times better.
Okay.
It's not even a high quality. It's a DSLR, just a couple £100. It's not a great camera.
All right. Because what's really cool about your TikTok as well is I went through your feed and I can see the point at which it switched, because I think you were using just a normal smartphone at one point.
My phone,
yeah. And then the next one, it was like the 3-point setup, the camera in front of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. So I was gonna ask, I'm not sure how we're doing for time. Like, what is your hard thing? What's the hard thing that you're doing? But is it content creation?
Well, I think that there's three.
Yeah.
One of them is definitely jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And just fitness in general, because I go to the gym. I've done it since I was 16, 17, and it's become part of who I am. But it's kind of like it plateaus over a few years. Anyone who's like gone to the gym for a long period of time or exercised or done running or whatever, you realize there comes a point where it gets quite boring. And you need to kind of find a way of putting it out of your comfort zone. And for me, that is jiu-jitsu, and it's you get a good workout, and like I said, it feels like someone's trying to kill you. So it's that is possibly the most challenging thing physically.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other two are content creation, definitely, and that ties into kind of being self-employed. So when the last time we spoke, I had recently left the police a couple of months before that.
Yep.
It's been nearly a year now that I've been self-employed. So Georgie and I, my partner, we now run 3 businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's challenging. Being self-employed is one of those things that you learn as you go, and you make mistakes. And that for me is the most challenging. And with content creation and doing stuff like podcasts, and consistency is always key. And I know that's what everybody says. Just put something out all the time, but it's not easy. It's not easy to constantly come up with new ideas, and when things sort of don't get any traction, you kind of lose motivation. I don't know what from your perspective, but I started creating content about money just before the pandemic, or during the pandemic, and I just find that the niche that we're in is just exploded more and more and more. Like, there's just every day I see a new personal finance creator on Instagram or TikTok, or which is a good thing, I think. And it just means that the message is being spread kind of exponentially around, which leads me to my next question I want to talk about. And if you're stretched for time, just let me know. There's one thing I do want to talk to you about, and that was scammers.
All right.
And sort of anonymity on both TikTok and Instagram. But I wanted to get your thoughts on, because I know you and pretty much anyone who has a following fan base has had scammers imitate their accounts and stuff. But I wanted to get kind of your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, I'll start off by talking about Twitter, because obviously Elon Musk has now bought it and has introduced the $8 a month Twitter Blue. Mm-hmm. And I was on my personal Insta. Like, I have a personal Instagram. I have no followers, but I follow largely video game and film accounts. Mm-hmm. So it's just like an S tier feed. It's just like all the stuff I want to see. It's so good. And there was a post from one of the video game outlets saying that a fake Nintendo Twitter account had been set up, which paid for Twitter Blue. Mm-hmm. So it was a fake Nintendo verified account, and I think it uploaded. I didn't see it personally, but the thumbnail was a picture of Super Mario holding up his middle finger. So that's clearly not solving the scammer problem. If someone can just make a fake Frugal Spender or fake Mr. MoneyJar account and get a blue tick, but you don't have one, that means that we have to pay for it in that kind of environment. Otherwise, that one looks like the real one.
But what happens in that scenario if somebody creates a fake Mr. MoneyJar Twitter, pays $8, gets verified, then you come along and you say, no, I'm actually the real Mr. MoneyJar. I need to be verified. Do you both get blue ticks?
My understanding is you get a blue tick if you pay.
So there could be 2 verified Mr. MoneyJar Twitter accounts.
Well, what I'll say is, this is based on my current understanding of it, so I may well be wrong, and this has been part of the criticism of it, is that by making people pay for the blue tick, you have completely changed what that blue tick means. Yeah. That blue tick before, it wasn't perfect, but what it was supposed to do was distinguish between authentic online presences and not. but now it's almost like a Twitter Plus.
Yeah.
There should be like a separate Twitter experience for people who pay for it.
Well,
I don't think you should get a badge.
Why not have a yellow tick?
Yeah, like,
if you pay, you got a yellow tick, and you can only that allows you to comment, and the people who have it, and then you have, just like as you did before, a blue tick. And if you want to charge them $8 a month, fine, do it. But blue tick means you got notoriety, you're famous, whatever the blue tick means currently, that remains. But if you pay, you get a yellow tick, and the people with the blue tick can, I don't know, click a little preference saying only people with yellow ticks can message me, DM me, comment.
Yeah. So they tried to do that the same day that they launched Twitter Blue. They also launched a grey tick, which Elon killed. He got rid of it. Yeah. So it's just the one thing. So yeah, I think so. I just spoke about that because I feel like the landscape is getting even more complicated.
Yeah, something that should have been simplified and made it better, made it murkier.
Yeah, and I think that the way that works is going to have to change. But when it comes to TikTok and Instagram, yeah, the scammers thing is really rife. 50% of all the DMs I get on Instagram are people asking me if Mr. Money.jar__ is like a separate, like a second account of mine, or if it's a scammer. And I go back to everyone personally and say, thank you for letting me know, please report it, because, they're taking time out of their day to try and help me. And I fully appreciate that. But when you take 15K followers and you take even just 1% of that, that's a lot of inbound traffic. And I think Meta should do something about it. Now, they won't, because when it comes to social media, from their perspective, we're just riding on the platform for free. We're not paying them any money. We're just using their platform to make money from brand partnerships and stuff, which is why when you stick an ad hashtag on something, it tanks, like it gets massively suppressed by the platform. And from their perspective, the more bots, the better. That's more people on their platform.
Yeah,
I do think the solution to this is creating like an Instagram business or a TikTok business thing that I will happily pay £10 a month to get a bit of support, just like an email address that I can email, or a person I can call. Because this is my income, but right now you're just left out to dry with no support.
It just seems to be getting worse. Like for me, it was just TikTok. And I looked last night. I posted a video, and within 20 minutes, there were 3 new Frugal Spender TikTok accounts commenting on my TikTok comments. And I looked and I counted 22 different accounts, because I blocked every single one of them. And just within 20 minutes, 3 new accounts had been made and were actively trying to scam people. It is the most, and like you said, it's so time consuming. And now even people on Instagram, and they are that Instagram scammers are the most relentless. Because at least with TikTok, if I block them, they can't comment on any of my stuff again. So it kind of just cuts them off, and that's it. They can't do anything. Whereas on Instagram, you can report all you want. That doesn't do anything. And I don't understand why that doesn't happen, but they are the most relentless. Like they added, because I think they add everybody who's following you and then try and message them. But obviously my personal account is following Frugal Spender, so they messaged me, like it's clearly me in the photo, like you've done such poor research here. They messaged me and I went along with it for just to see kind of where it was taking me and what it was doing. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, enough's enough. So I said, you understand, I am Frugal Spender, that is me. And they just continued, they still tried, they just basically ignored it and still continued to get me to hand over £5,000 worth of Bitcoin into their wallet.
So a fake account of you spoke to the real you.
Yeah.
And when the real you told the fake you that you were the real you.
They still carried on to scam. Yeah.
Give me money.
Yeah, still.
Then you've got to respect it.
I know they are
got-
relentless. They have got drive, and I just think I think I even said to him, if you just put this passion and drive that you've got here, and you're so relentless. Like you
into
could
helping
go
people.
into sales, you would do
Yeah.
really well. You would do
Yeah.
really well. Yeah, no, I wondered whether you had any insights as to how we stop it, but I don't think there is a way.
How do we stop it? Unfortunately, I think this is just the era of the internet that we're in. I think that, like, as I said, a paid subscription where you get, like, once you're over 10K followers or something, you get an account manager, you get like a team that you can contact at Meta, and they kind of treat you like you're a customer of theirs rather than the product. I would totally pay for that. That shouldn't be linked to the blue verification badge. That's a separate thing. But I think for now, I mean, things I've seen done well is just you just make a post addressing the issue, pin it to the top of your feed, and it just has to be about educating the followers of not falling for that type of stuff. And I do think that people are getting wiser to it now.
Yeah, I do. And sadly, actually, that is what people are doing, isn't it? And I think if you look at anybody who's got a sort of following in the personal finance space, even in their sort of bio title, says, you know, you're going to, if I message you, it's a scammer. And you just think it's really sad that that's kind of become the first thing that people see when they go into to learn about personal finance. And it's almost probably going to deter people from even potentially going any further, because they just think, oh, you know, scammers are going to get hold of me, or especially if you've been scammed before, it's like, you know, it's a life-changing thing for people. And I just think it's really sad that the responsibility is kind of on content creators to have to constantly post and say, oh, there's a new scammer out there, you know, please report them. I just find it really sad that, you know, Meta and TikTok, they're just not doing anything about it.
Yeah. But because it's wrong, it cannot continue forever. Because, like, you know, the shift that Twitter has made is a shift away from the ad-based revenue model. And also, in the news this week, Meta has announced that it's cutting 13% of its workforce or something like that. Yeah. So these revenue models, which at the time when they first originated in the noughties, were just making loads of money, that business model is now slowing down. And I would support, at least for business customers, a kind of, you just pay for the service.
I mean, I just don't understand why they can't just have people just prove who you are. Just prove who you are. Like you do with the bank account. Just upload an image of a driving license, and then you have an account. Otherwise, sorry, you know, you can't just run a script in the background and open 10,000 accounts within 5 minutes, because you have to provide actual evidence of who you are. I don't just that would solve everything, because then you wouldn't be getting scammers and bots. And then there was a really good, I talked about in the last podcast today, actually, we're having like financially penalizing scammers and bots by posting, like, you know, £5 or £10 when you open an account with whatever platform, you almost like a security deposit. Like if you go to a hotel room, you put £10 into it, you basically pay them £10. And if you do anything malicious or breaches their terms and conditions, they're just going to take that money away from you. So if you're caught to be, you know, posting on people's stuff and trying to scam them, and you get reported 20 times saying that you're scamming and evidence is provided, they just take your money and boot you off the platform. If they just did that,
it'd be interesting to see.
10,000 bots, that's a massive financial hit to somebody who's trying to scam people for £5,000 worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I do hope it sorts. I mean, I don't know anybody. Nobody's reached out to me to say they've actually been scammed. So fingers crossed, nobody has been duped by the scammer Frugal Spender or Mr. MoneyJar. Timi, thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss before we wrap it up?
No. As always, Brian, massively enjoyed speaking to you. I think we're very similar in a lot of ways, and I'd love to chat again.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you for having me
absolutely.
on.
Where can people find you if they want to kind of see your content, see the message that you put out there?
I'm at Mr. MoneyJar across social media. Any other account isn't me. So yeah, come say hello on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok.
No dots, no underscores.
No dots, no underscores.
Perfect. Timi, thank you very much.